Honorable members, when the suspension was made, we were discussing order number 3, and to that we shall recommit. Honorable member for Christchurch South.
Much obliged to you, Your Honor. Your Honor, when we went into recess, I had come to the point where we were speaking of government's promised expenditure to facilitate the movement to, and I quote, go green. And we had made the point that there is little connection between government's promise and government's activity, that government within the communities of this country seems to have gone right, and that the government is pursuing propaganda ahead of prosperity. So we will leave that. The public is a very good judge of these activities and the reasons for these activities. We had spoken of the promise of government to do something called regathering and to give to every month a theme, and that is the relevance of that reference is important because we had said that it will involve massive spending, and indeed this is a program about spending, and we do expect that every month being attached to a parish, that the month of September will be significant. I think that is St. James, January St. Lucy, and their theme is faith, and then you move to St. Peter, February, St. Thomas, March, April, St. Joseph, May, St. John, June, St. George, July, St. Philip. Lots of money is going to be spent. This document speaks more reliably as to government's true intent than the document which was brought here this morning. August will be St. Andrew, and the people of this country may come to understand why September will be very significant, since it may well be that one of the representatives in that parish will change by way of a by-election. Yes, that is September will be St. James, so that if the people will have their way, when the month of September comes in celebration of St. James, we may well find that one of the persons who now represents one of the 3 constituencies would have departed, and that when they're celebrating cricket, I won't give the gender of that member, but that member will no longer be among us, and the people will decide, I suspect early in the new year, who shall be the new representative for that portion of St. James. So that we expect great expenditures throughout this coming year, and even greater expenditures sometime early in 2025, when government will embark as a matter of highest priority on a political campaign to rescue that one of the 3 constituencies in St. James pursuant to the departure of the incumbent. Unless there's a change of mind within the government, these are the things that shall come to pass, so that the spending will relate not only to a gathering, but it will relate to a gathering of political energies to rescue one of the 3 St. James constituencies when that by-election is called. I'm waiting, ma'am.
Honorable member, will you please continue? I am listening very attentively.
Yes, you're listening to me attentively.
We all are.
And in the presence of the
You have the floor, sir.
expert on the standing orders, he will indicate to you that 33 sub-rule 6 is now breached by the various noises that I'm hearing from other honorable members while I'm speaking.
I'm not hearing the noises, sir. Sorry.
Anyhow, there shall be
Please
greater
continue.
noises
Please continue.
soon when that by-election is announced. I'm sorry that I had to make the announcement before other persons were given the opportunity to make the announcement, but it is upon us. And unless there's some substantial change of mind, you want to know how this relates to what is before us, but it will involve the spending of monies. And I will wish well for the person outgoing as he embarks. Oh, there, I wasn't supposed to mention the gender, but as he embarks upon a new life, we will wish him well. And now we will come back to government's promise in this document to enhance food production and food security. And we will say again that there's a dissonance between government's official promises and government's activities. And we said this morning, and we continue to say, that government's emphasis and government's priority is clearly on tourism. And we don't fight against that, but we've asked for diversification of the economy. And while asking for diversification of an economy, and while asking a government to pay attention to agriculture, the government continues to treat with the utmost contempt persons involved in agriculture. The esteemed governor of the central bank recently in a report said that agriculture is in decline, and that is contrary to what the Ministry of Agriculture had been telling this country for the last 2 years, including this year. And so I don't know what will be the theme of the honorable member for St. Philip South going forward, but I doubt that he will now wish to be heard contradicting the governor of the central bank, who has indicated to this country in writing in an official report that there's ruination and decline within the agricultural sector. And I don't wish the public to become tired of hearing me make a claim for fisher folk. But this is a claim that needs to be contextualized. And we must, those of us who hold prejudices against people based on their station in life and their location, their social location, we need to pause and quantify what are the contributions of these people who work in the agricultural industry, whether as workers on and off the land or workers on and off the sea. Their work brings considerable foreign exchange to this country. Their work provides considerable employment for the people of this country. And more importantly than foreign exchange and employment, their work feeds the people of this country. As I said before and I say again, you cannot discuss culture unless you discuss food. As one esteemed Barbadian writer says, if we have no food, we have nothing else. We have no culture. And this country must now be told that the agricultural worker, as that esteemed writer told us, is a cultural worker. A cultural worker to the extent that his labors are at the heart of culture, are at the heart of life, that they provide food. And while we have a minister of housing rampaging across this country, promising to plant cement on every agricultural spot, we have workers in agriculture and workers in aquaculture trying to feed the people of this country. And while massive concessions are given to those within the tourism sector, I said it last week and I'm going to say it again, we find a government having begrudging regard for the right of survival of those who work in agriculture, and this is confirmed by the governor of the central bank, who says that agriculture is in decline. No food, no culture. Nothing happens without food. And we have a government claiming that the war in Ukraine, as far away as Ukraine, that every Ukrainian soldier who loses his life in some way affects food security in this country. Well, if that is so, support the industry. And we repeat that there's no support, and where there is support, it is begrudging. That you have a multi-million-dollar industry destroyed by a hurricane. And we have every week, whether by media conference or in this place, we are finding ourselves having to defend the rights of those people for government support. And we are finding a government that is begrudging of their right to support. And we have people in this country claiming that they have no entitlement. We have people in this country claiming that they're beggars. They're not beggars. They are not beggars. We have thousands of people who form lines to the various fish markets across this country. It is not a ritual. It is a necessary act to feed this country. It is an industry. It must not be made marginal by government's attitude towards these people. They are people too, and I will represent them in here. And anybody who is tired of hearing me say that the agricultural and aquacultural workers in this country are entitled and deserving of support, they're going to have to continue to be tired. And I don't wish to bring it to this. But if others are getting support, give them some too. And if the sanitation workers in this country are in peril, I will defend them. And if the bus drivers are in peril, I will defend them. And if the nurses and doctors can't enjoy proper terms and conditions of service, I will defend them. And if the accountants losing their job because of a declining international business sector, I will defend them. Wherever there's government policy that causes suffering and hardship, mine will be a voice in defense of those who suffer. And so this is not any patronizing intervention into the lives of the fisher folk. This is a genuine plea to this government to show, to prove that you are what you say you are. And you've said from 2018 to the present that you care. And when a man says that he cares, it means that his bosom is filled with compassion. Where's the compassion? Why are people leaving the fishing industry today and going into itinerant employment at the side of the street selling clothes? Does this government know that that is happening? Because we're hearing that people can't fill out forms or that they did not have any insurance. But when we were feeding our bellies full of fish, we did not display these prejudices. So whether you're a nurse or an accountant, the voice of the opposition will be a voice in your defense of your right to economic survival, in defense of your right to professional survival, and I'm not going to leave it. A cause is not justified because it is a popular cause. A cause is justified based on its morality, and in this case on its legality. But I've said I'm not going to argue the case in here. I'm not going to re-argue the case that government ought to have secured the people's votes properly. But that is the legal cause. That is the legal case. Where's the moral cause? A few days before Christmas, when the majority of people in this country are ready to enjoy merriment, there's an unhappy minority that have been promised $1,500 measly dollars. Said it last week, I'm not going to abandon them. If political popularity is to derive from popular causes, I'm sorry. This is a moral cause that merits governmental intervention, and I will not continue to hear a government accuse an entire sector of ineptitude simply because government is begrudging towards those persons based on social prejudices. And those social prejudices do not exist when we are granting concessions to people to change the art on their walls and call it furnishing. Those social prejudices do not exist when we are permitting people concessions to renovate premises that have over 5 to 10 years gained them millions of dollars in financial profit. The cause will not be abandoned. And if it is an unpopular cause, still it will not be abandoned. And those who wish the cause to be abandoned, I commend to them the verse. First they came. They came for the communists and I was not one. They came for the socialists and I was not one. They came for the trade unionists and I was not one. They came for the Jews and I was not one. And they came for everybody. And I kept silent. They kept silent. They came for all of them and I kept silent. Then at the end of the verse, he tells you they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. Who dares to speak for the poor and the suffering in this country? Who dares to speak for the middle income people in this country? whose suffering is disguised by an exterior, in many cases, of false prosperity. A lot of us are suffering too. A lot of us are paying the bills with an exterior of dignity. But alas, Your Honor, it is only an exterior. Because tomorrow does not promise much. And those messages are transmitted to our children at the age of 13 and 14 and 15 who are promising their parents that they will not live in this country. So amidst all the pretty talk, amidst these documents that speak prettily, there's a harsh reality out there that is attending the life of the working class and the middle class in this country. And this government, I can't come in here and ask this government to pay attention to it, to pay attention to these classes of persons. And I'm not here to excite rebellion. I am here in search of justice for the people of this country. And if you want to enhance food production and food security, show that that is your intent. We held a media conference a few weeks ago, and a young lady, a young vendor of the Bridgetown terminal got up and gave testimony and said that she has been looking for land for a while because she wants to grow her own vegetables. She wants to grow her own produce for sale. And Your Honor, you know, she said something that I had never imagined. In one of the cases I did, we dealt with WTO, World Trade Organization, and the neoliberalist project, which encourages free trade. And we were assuming that all the produce from the larger countries, based on economies of scale, would be cheaper. And she introduced us to the reality that that is not true. She reminded this country, through a humble media conference, that the agricultural produce from the Caribbean is cheaper than the agricultural produce from the United States, the great United States of America, which in many cases subsidizes its agricultural industry. We don't know that. We don't know that. And that humble lady introduced us to that reality. She works in the fish market, and she wants to expand her enterprise by gaining a piece of land. And rather than this government subdivide the agricultural lands in this country for the sake of small entrepreneurs, this government pursues a path of implanting cement and photovoltaic systems on agricultural land at the expense of this country's prosperity. Prosperity is not only about foreign exchange. Prosperity is about the local right of the people to eat the food that is grown in this country. And this government's policy is preventing people from growing their own food in this country. And that is why I say there's a dissonance between the declaration of this document and government's day-to-day policy. Young people in this country who wish to make a career in agriculture are being frustrated by the misguided policy of this government. I cannot say on the eve of Christmas that this is a government whose breast is filled with the milk of compassion. It is not. And ours is a plea for this government. As I said earlier, and as I said a few weeks ago, walk to the land, return to the land, and have the people behind you, the people who are genuinely interested in revisiting those former plantation lands as owners, small owners in agriculture. That is a noble project. That is a project which will gain this government support. But the project which alienates this government from the support of the people is a project which is anti-people. And I am saying that the failure and refusal of this government to support the fishing industry and to support agriculture is anti-people. And if you don't believe, government, that your popularity has declined as a result of your deliberate and daily policy, you are living with the ostrich, with your head firmly planted in the ground. And I won't say where your tail end is located, but expect some lashes on your tail end when the time comes. Whether in the parish of St. James next year or whenever the other time comes. That is not a threat, nor even a promise, but that is an undertaking that this voice will be joined by many other voices across this country to remind this government that dictatorship is not the form of government that this country has ever wanted and encouraged. We need a return to democracy. We need a return to the land. We need a return of the people who wish to do so, to return to the lands of this country. And to return to the lands of this country in agriculture, and to return to the seas that surround this country in aquaculture. That is what this country needs. And as I've said, without being anti-tourism, and indeed we are pro-tourism, but let us also be pro-agriculture. That is not a difficult message to understand. And as I have said, history has brought us to this juncture at which we have seen the decline of the system of the plantation. We may reject the plantation, but we embrace the land. And the young people of this country have asked the government, I beg your pardon, to jointly with the people embrace the land. And the government has refused. For the sake of a photovoltaic system, which is not working in the interest of the people. And they have rejected the land for the sake of housing, which they claim will be for the people. But I have other news to deliver to the people of this country. And in delivering that news to the people of this country, I will come to the next of government's claimed priorities. Permit me, ma'am, to read, and I quote, building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy to drive sustainable capital formation and provide housing to large numbers of persons waiting on housing solutions. This is no repeat of what I said earlier this year in a budget reply. Treat this, Your Honor, as an updated report as to what is happening with housing in this country. I quote again, government's official document, permit me. Building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy to drive sustainable capital formation, and then the word "and" appears. That is disjunctive, so that there are two priorities here: to build houses that are energy efficient, in other words, that can provide their own energy. I'm coming to that. And the second portion of that objective is to provide housing to large numbers of persons waiting on housing solutions. 2 weeks ago, I stood up in here and I challenged the Honorable Minister of Housing, the representative, the member for St. George South, to tell the people of this country in the aftermath of the Hope fiasco, I challenged the honorable member to say on that date, how many houses were occupied at the infamous and now failed Lancaster project? He said 56. And I rejected his offer to get in his car and go down there. Apart from the fact that he's a very poor driver, I had no intention of going down there with him. And Your Honor, I went. And the security guard was no longer in the guard hut. They were stopping people from coming in. And some persons had moved in, and I spoke to those persons. And on that date, the honorable member disclosed to this parliament, within his oath to tell the truth, that on that date, 56 persons, well, not 56 persons, 56 houses were occupied. I will not offend the standing orders of this parliament, but we did a count, and that is all I will leave with the people of Barbados. The people of Barbados can drive into that community and ask whether 56 persons were living or 56 houses were occupied on the date in question. I leave that. That is not at the center of my updated report card. It is a project conducted under this thing called HOPE. And HOPE, a very optimistic name. I invite the honorable member to correct me if I'm wrong, but it is an acronym which derives home ownership providing energy. When I went on my trip to Lancaster, which he calls the University of Vespera Gardens, and the honorable member told this parliament that they called it the University of Vespera Gardens because they learned so much. And at the time of that debate, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we asked the honorable member how you could commit 60,000, not 60,000, I beg your pardon, $60 million to a housing project as part of an experiment. That whoever got the work down there was experimenting. They were in the process of learning. It was a learning exercise. You mean you didn't take up the people's $60 million and give to someone in whom you had confidence that he knew how to build a house? And the evidence that those persons or that person who built those houses exists today in the fact that they are workmen down there receiving taxpayers' money to correct the bad work that was done, people of Barbados, here and abroad. That there is no accounting for that $60 million. And further, this government continues to pay workmen. While we speak at this very minute in this parliament, there are workmen down there being paid to correct the bad work. But the honorable member calls it the University of Vespera because they went there to learn. And in case you're curious, Your Honor, I'm going to tell you now how much those workmen are being paid to cover up government's embarrassment, to cover up the scandal that has been HOPE, home ownership providing energy. I'm going to come to that aspect very shortly. But many of us would wish that we were a carpenter or a mason who would receive $3,000 a week, and I'm happy for them. They are almost as important as the agricultural people. They feed us, but these people house us. Food, shelter, and clothing are the basic requirements of any civilized human being. So the artisan is important. But the artisans at Hope are being paid $3,000 a week every week in this country, not because their skills are any greater than anybody else's. And perhaps they deserve it. It's about time. It's about time that somebody hits the jackpot. But they're being paid that as part of government's cover-up of the scandal of a failed project on which $60 million was spent for bad work. And the people in this country now need to know that a failed project is continuing to receive taxpayers' money, and that artisans, and I congratulate them, are down there being paid $3,000 a week to cover up a scandal, to cover up bad work, to cover up government's mismanagement and maladministration of the taxpayers' money. But congratulations, I say, to every artisan who is down there receiving $3,000 a week to fix the loss of $60 million in taxpayers' money. I bring that information not only to the people of Barbados, here and abroad, but I bring that to several of these parliamentarians in here who don't know. They will know now. And they can make private inquiry. You know, ma'am, it is quite possible that even the Minister of Housing may not know. Even the Minister of Housing may not know that his ministry is paying $3,000 a week to artisans to cover up bad work. Now, I don't have a problem with that. But if you're paying an artisan $3,000 a week to finish a house, and the price of that house is to be based on cost, what will be the price of that house? And we know, the people in this country know, that they are not going to sell those houses to anybody based on the cost of materials and labor. The cost of labor has gone through the roof. It has become astronomical. And government is covering up a scandal. Government is covering up its embarrassment in having wasted $60 million of the taxpayers' dollars and are now adding hundreds of thousands of dollars more, possibly millions, to make good a failed project that they called a University of Vespera. And they call it a university because they went in and tried and they failed the tests in construction. And where are the taxpayers? Where are the taxpayers? Where are the taxpayers who are called upon to celebrate the arrival of 26 garbage trucks? Where are we? I come to the aspect of that project in accordance with what is before this House today, that this government promised to build, the favorite word appears, resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy. Those houses that are occupied at Lancaster were all supposed to have on their roofs photovoltaic systems so that the light and power bills would have been low. Any of the members can go down there, even in the car, badly driven by the Minister of Housing, and come back and tell this house and the people of this country how many of those houses have photovoltaic systems on the roofs. The only ones that carry photovoltaic systems are the show houses, I think about 3 of them. So that another aspect of that project has failed. That $60 million was not enough. The expenditure of $60 million was not enough to complete that project according to its original design. and that those persons are down there paying the high electricity bills as any of the rest of us, so that the renewable energy aspect of the project has failed. Home ownership providing energy has become home ownership providing disappointment. Yes, I'm still talking. I heard you. Still talking. And you better take your seat.
Please, please, please. Continue.
You didn't hear any ask me?
No, sir,
if
I
still
don't hear
talking?
this, sir. I'm listening to you attentively, please.
Well, since he came, I'm going to ask him to get comfortable. Because I'm going to make him uncomfortable with these disclosures.
Please continue, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Home ownership providing energy has failed. And it has failed he or she who voted to expend $60 million down there. And it has failed those who now live in the houses. They don't have any alternative energy package within those houses. And I am not deviating from what is before the House today. I'm not deviating from this resolution. Because this resolution, unread by the Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central, made direct reference to building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy. That was at the heart and horizon of the Hope experiment. It has failed. Honorable Member for St. George North and Minister of Housing, where is the renewable energy component of the housing stock badly built and now being repaired at Lancaster? I was interrupted by points of order when I first spoke of hope. I was interrupted this morning, and I invite any interruption now to tell me and to tell the people that what I'm saying is false. Even the people who live at Lancaster, some of them live in disappointment today that it is a failed project, except that they remain grateful that a house that may well have cost in excess of $1 million is sold to them for far less than that. Is it $300,000? What a marvelous thing when you can buy a house for $300,000 that costs a very generous government $1 million, according to conservative estimates. And the Honorable Member for St. George South can get upon a point of order and deny that there are workmen down there. I'm going to repeat it, because when I first said it, I was unable to see his face. And now that I'm seeing his face, I will ask him to rise on a point of order and deny that there are workmen down there receiving $3,000 a week to cover up a governmental scandal. But I won't sit, because he is not rising on any point of order. He knows that what I'm saying is the truth. And his silence is acquiescence in the truth that I speak on that matter, and indeed on every other matter. I don't come here to mislead nor deliberately mislead. As I said, sometimes we are wrong. All human beings have a right to be wrong. Except that this government does not understand that. And that sometimes I will not be accurate. But this omniscient government, so omniscient that they spent $60 million in taxpayers' money, they are never wrong. And so, Your Honor, I make that as an updated report on what is hope. And do you know, ma'am, And I'm going to repeat this. Do you know, ma'am, that while the people of Barbados are waiting for an investigation into Hope, the government is still doing business with Hope? Do we know this? Did we believe as Barbadians that the activities of Hope would have been suspended and that it was the decent thing to do? And that the government would have suspended the activities of Hope in the aftermath of the expenditure of $60 million? And the minister said in here a few weeks ago that they're still doing business with Hope. Well, I asked the minister if Hope is still active at Lancaster, or if the amount of $3,000 being paid to the artisans is being paid out of the resources of the National Housing Corporation. And if it is not being paid out of the resources of National Housing Corporation, is it being paid out of the considerable resources of Hope? And if the full $60 million have been expended, is Hope being voted new monies by this government? Has Hope received a new injection of monies by the government? All these are questions. All these are questions that need to be asked before the event in St. James next year, if they go through with it. If they gird their loins for that by-election next year, and if it is now decided by this public disclosure that they could ungird their loins and keep the member in office for a little longer, he's not the first one that they chased away. But that is to digress. That is to digress. And I shan't digress anymore. Those are the questions that we legitimately ask without a point of order. In denial? In denial? There has been no denial of what I have asserted over the last 15 minutes. I move on to the next of government's budget policy priorities. They promise to boost export capacity of traditional and non-traditional goods and services. The honorable member stood up in here this morning and spoke for about an hour and gave this country no detail as to what are these traditional and non-traditional goods and services. He having not said, neither can we say. We are in opposition, we are not the government. It is the government's obligation to dissect pretty language and to say what it means. And to tell the people that what they say they mean and that they mean what they say, but that is not the kind of government we have running this country. They promised to develop a life sciences park as part of a critical thrust to build out the bioeconomy. I would invite the honorable member in his wrap-up to say what that is about. I know what it is about, and I know what is going on, and I know the work that is going on, and I am not here to deny the government any of its credits, and so I will allow the member in his wrap-up to speak of this life sciences park. It's not for me to do. But moving on to the next priority, the government says it will establish a heritage district as a boon to development of the heritage economy. When you were a little lass, your beloved Prime Minister at the time declared a considerable portion of the East Coast to be a part of some national heritage. You no longer are that little lass, Your Honor. You now sit high in a parliament. And you have reached the point, Your Honor, where you have seen the desecration of what your beloved Prime Minister at that time and his administration declared to be a park within the national heritage. You are now seeing its desecration along the East Coast. To the protests of Barbadians across this country, this government is either directly or indirectly involved in construction of properties and buildings which will exclude Barbadians from access to portions of those lands which fall within the Park of National Heritage. That is the reality. So that is why I say that this government is the chief industrialist in this country in the production of sweet talk. It sounds very sweet here. Sounds very sweet, and it reads very sweetly that you're establishing a heritage district as a boon to development of the heritage economy. And a few weeks ago, Barbadians were down there protesting that they no longer had access to cherished and treasured areas of land which had been used, passed, repassed, and bypassed by generations of Barbadians. Yet this government uses the word heritage. No, it cannot. This government has lost the moral right to speak on heritage. This government is not only favoring those who are already highly favored by financial circumstances, but this government is denying the people of this country access to areas of heritage. And we come to the last of the promises in this section of the document, creating a balance sheet of underutilized assets in a soon to be created Barbados Legacy Fund. Well, we had a housing credit fund, $60 million, that's gone. They will at some point in time, if they feel that we are deserving, we as lowly citizens, all of us, if they determine that we are entitled to hear about this Barbados Legacy Fund and how much money it contains and who manages it and who will have the authority to pay it out and whether it will be for friends, privileged families, or favorites. Give us some information on this so-called Barbados Legacy Fund. This morning, I told this Parliament that a major crisis in this country's history since independence is with us at present. And I told this Parliament that the crisis of crime is the worst crisis this country has experienced since independence, since 1966. And I told this Parliament before, and I say it again in here today, that while you don't blame government for every act of criminal wrongdoing, you also say that a government has a public responsibility using the agencies at its disposal And those two major agencies are the cabinet and the parliament. The cabinet deals with day-to-day policy. The parliament passes the law. And I have previously accused this government of coming in here at my invitation to strengthen and to make more strict a bail act, and I accused the government then, and my accusation continues today, that the new bail act is cosmetic. It has done nothing except to add more words and less meaning. More words and less meaning, and I accused the government at the time of exporting its legislative responsibility, its responsibility to pass law that will arrest crime, no pun intended. I accuse the government of exporting that responsibility to the other arm of the state, the judiciary, and to say, well, y'all fix the problem out there. The problem can be fixed at the level of the cabinet if the cabinet has the will. I accuse this cabinet of not having the will to deal with this severe crisis of crime that now afflicts this country. I charged the government then with a responsibility through this parliament, pursuant to cabinet intervention and policy declaration, to bring anti-gang legislation to this place. As has been done in Jamaica, Trinidad, and other islands of this Caribbean, this government will be called upon to give account to the people of this country as to why they decided not to pass a law that has been proved effective in other countries. They will answer that question, and grievously will they answer it. Because grievously, this country is enduring not only a period of crime, but a nature of crime which reveals itself in the most sinister ways. And the people of this country know. And the government wants to say that it does not know. And the government wants to say that it does not know what is the solution to the kind of nasty crime that now afflicts this country. When every Tom, Dick, and Harry at every street corner and in every rum shop, and not only there, in every church pew, people now know details about criminal wrongdoing in this country. People understand the locus of crime in this country. People understand where crime in this country is rooted. They understood it in Jamaica and Trinidad, and they passed anti-gang legislation. I'm not the government. Let the government claim ignorance. Let the government continue to claim ignorance. Maybe we are insulated. Maybe as parliamentarians we are insulated from the high incidence of crime. Maybe we are privileged. Maybe we are. Maybe we are. I am not. I know I'm not. I know that I am as vulnerable as the other man out there. A man got shot out there with a stray bullet one night, straight through his head, and he died. I drive out here every night. Where is my stray bullet? Or will my bullet be stray? On that I say no more. I am as vulnerable as the other man. And I will say more on that in future. I won't say it now. But this job in this location is not without its hazards. I have seen expressions of character assassination right here in this place. On that, I will say no more. On that, I will say no more. I don't care how much they interrupt me. I knew that some would present themselves and breach the standing orders of this parliament to try to interrupt me when I started to speak on crime and its locusts. I knew it. I knew it. But there will come a time and there will be a place when I will tell certain truths, but not today. Not today. But I have asked this government.
You're paying attention to the asides.
I am not paying attention to
Listening.
these. Not asides, it is in plural. One person. One person is now so agitated that he tries to shout me down on the issue of crime. And his colleagues are silent. And I don't regard it as any coincidence that it comes from him. That is no coincidence. Keep him quiet.
You mean the honorable member, sir?
Yes, the honorable member.
Here, please.
Yes, the honorable member
could you
must
continue?
learn to keep quiet. And if these topics cause him personal tribulation, leave the chamber. Go and cry somewhere else.
Honorable member, I don't hear the asides. Will you continue?
Go and
please?
shed his tears elsewhere. Don't shed his anxieties at my expense by trying to shout me down. Because a time is coming when I will say what I know. All right. All right. Don't do that.
Please,
do not do that.
Honorable member, please.
Do not do that.
Please, continue with your discussion.
Your Honor,
sir.
I'm not going to call his name nor title for the public to know who he is. I am going to be that kind to him, but tell him that when I am on certain subjects and his heart is troubled, get up and go outside and shed some tears.
Honorable member, please, will you continue?
I am
your
trying.
discussion and take out the personal components
trying, ma'am.
of what you're saying? Can you move on, please?
You dare me?
I am not hearing the asides, sir, please. If I hear the asides, I will make the ruling. I am hearing you loud and clear.
You're hearing me loud and clear.
I have been all day.
I am hearing him loud and clear too. And on the subject of crime, his heart is troubled. Let not your heart be troubled.
Neither be afraid. Please.
Neither be afraid.
Please, but I don't want you to be afraid either, because we're
Why
not.
you
We're
don't come to
all
Sunday
in
school with
here
us?
as a people, working towards the same task of serving the people of Barbados.
You hear them?
So please continue. They have the right to say their
They have a
names.
right to.
I'm not
No,
hearing
you
their
don't have that
sides.
right. I beg your pardon. ma'am.
I'm not hearing their sides, sir.
I am hearing them.
So, but you're hearing, but you're not ruling.
My
So
ears
would
are
you
better
please
than yours,
continue in the light that you've been on for quite a while, and I'm not
Yes.
depriving you of that privilege. Just continue on the trajectory you're on.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
let us please move
You like
on.
the trajectory. And I will
I'm not telling you I like it. If I were in my seat, I will not tell you that. So therefore, let us please continue in faith and the camaraderie that is desired at this time of the year called Christmas. Please, go on, sir.
I spoke to a silent chamber all afternoon. I invited the honorable member for St. George South to correct me. And in his silence, he was saying I was correct. And as soon as I start to talk about crime, in walks.
Honorable member, please. Everyone in here has the opportunity to represent their interests, the ministries, and the people. Go on, sir, where you are discussing, and leave that alone. I do not hear their sides.
There are no gorilla elephants in here, you know. So when I speak, whoever thinks he is a gorilla elephant, he still has to keep quiet.
I am the gorilla front right now.
No, man.
So will you please go on, sir?
man.
Please. You've gone on extensively and we're listening. Please continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I wouldn't ask for him to be put out because I want him to hear what I'm saying, even at the expense of his comfort. And he is anticipating what I will say now.
The honorable member.
Oh, yes.
We are all
The
honorable
honor-
members.
yes.
Yes, please.
We must not deny him his title.
Yes, please.
His title is honorable.
And I will not allow him to deny you yours either.
No, indeed
Or any
not.
other honorable member.
Indeed not.
So let us do it. I've told you before and I've told others, the public is listening.
Yes.
We are the ones who are setting the examples.
Yes.
We're gonna hear the little asides, but we cannot let them cause us to be distracted, especially if we're making points that we want the rest of the other honorable members and the public to hear.
When the-
Listen and internalize if necessary. So, sir, will you continue
Yes,
with your
thank you, ma'am.
presentation?
When the expert on the standing orders returns to this chamber, I will ask him to send a note across there and tell him that
Well,
there's a
you will
roll
do
call.
that. You will do that when
Yes,
the honorable
yes,
member
what
is
will speak
here.
to him.
But right now, I am filling that void. And then when
Yes.
that happens and he allows it,
Yes.
then that is his ruling.
Yes.
I cannot rule for him. He can't rule for me.
Yes.
But as long as I'm sitting here, we're going to respect each other on the sides of this honorable chamber.
Yes.
And we will move forward with respect to be able to explain, discuss, share, whatever aspects of it will be. So let us please continue, as we know we have all the years. We're going to keep the standard high. Go on, sir. Honorable member.
I'm obliged to you, ma'am. Let us leave that.
Yes, please.
Right. And let us hope that he mends his ways. I continue. Now, I was at the point where some of us became uncomfortable, but I'm not here. I am not here to comfort the disturbed. Maybe even I am here to disturb those who are comfortable in an environment that is volatile. And I will bring this country, in spite of the glossy readings in this document, to a recognition that this document has said nothing about how government intends to spend its money to arrest, pardon the pun, the outbreak of crime in this country. And we've had to depend on one of the popular newspapers to highlight what has been happening in this country. And we were in shock. Peace and freedom-loving people in this country were shocked when they bought that paper on that Friday in question and saw 4 young men regaling its front page, speaking of a relationship with the government and saying that the government had entered into an agreement with them in Barbados that we love so much on this cherished land, honorable member. And those 4 young men were saying that they kept their side of the bargain. And honest fisher folk can't get a cent. And the people working in the administration of the public service can't get their jobs back. And the accountants who used to be working with the international business companies that left cannot find a job except that they may go to Canada or the United States or Britain and find one now. Good, honest, decent people in Barbados who did no wrong, not even any wrong to the government, were not complaining on the front page of the paper. And some 4 fellow citizens, they must be given their title, they're citizens. And they are fellow citizens. And they came on the front page of a paper to complain that government, and I'm going to use plain language now, there are no tricks in plain and simple faith, Shakespeare. And they came to complain that government owed them money for keeping the peace. And the nation could not understand it. And when I say the nation, I don't mean with a capital N. The nation, the people of this nation, could not understand that this was happening on a Friday, a day of the week when we were supposed to be settling in to happy weekends. And you know, up to now, this government has not told the people of this country how much money it gave them. This government was paying people to keep the peace and underpaying police officers who keep the peace. And underpaying the adjunct police officers who also keep the peace. And there are many police officers in this country, not only are they underpaid, but they are not promoted according to their skills, talents, and experience, because we are weighted under by a colonial police system that denies them promotion. So we are treating policemen in this country. And for citizens, I won't abuse them, come on the front page of a Friday newspaper, possibly the most popular edition. Perhaps this Sunday one is more popular. But there's a reason why they placed them in Friday, because they wanted maximum publicity for this public complaint against a government who they claim was refusing to support them. In case anyone thought that I was going to say government was supporting crime, I did not say that. I say that government was supporting them based on what they said. But if you're supporting them financially, and if you can't give the fisher folk to this day $3 million, did this government pay $7.5 million? This government, yes, this government. Did this government pay $7.5 million to a ministry to pay to fellow citizens who were complaining that government was in breach? And when was this treaty? When was this contract made between government and these citizens? And when was it made? And I'm going to speak legally now. When was it made at a consideration of possibly $7.5 million? And for what period was this $7.5 million paid? In this unholy treaty. Did this parliament condone it? Was a resolution brought to this parliament, as was the resolution brought today by the honorable member for Christchurch East Central? Did the public know that we were paying these fellow citizens? Points of order. Points of order. Points of order. Why the silence, government? Points of order, let me hear them. Let the people of Barbados hear that I am wrong in saying that this government was paying an element of fellow citizens, taxpayers' money. And let this government rise on a point of order to deny that the payment thus far had been in the amount of $7.5 million, while you paid the fisher folk $3 million. Points of order. The expert is absent, but we want some points of order. Clarify. Clarify, honorable members. Elucidate, honorable members. Accuse me of misleading the public, honorable members. Nary a word. But the front page of the Nation spoke volumes as to the activities of this government in the lives of fellow citizens. The effrontery, though, the effrontery, the brazen disregard for standards. the brazen disregard for a government that they feel that they can drag a government's name publicly into disclosure of an alliance in which they will pay taxpayers' money. In this republic, without a Republican constitution complete, everything is incomplete. And that alliance was also incomplete, and that's why they came to complain. And we have unemployed people in this country suffering. And fellow citizens, a group of fellow citizens were demanding their monies. I ask the people of this country, what moral judgment now can you make of this government? What moral judgment can you make of this government? And if there's any member who wishes to distance himself from that arrangement that government made, do so now. Points of order. Make your points of order now, or be fixed with collective responsibility for the action of having given comfort to an element of fellow citizens who feel that they now have the moral right to demand that the taxpayers' money be paid to them. Points of order. Points of order, ma'am. They're dead. They're sleeping. Are they ashamed? Well, the laughter from one says that he is neither asleep nor ashamed. But I will leave that topic, because that topic represents a blot on public affairs in this country that those fellow citizens felt that they could come on the front page in full view of the public, no faces hidden. Points of order. Was it $7.5 million or was it $17.5 million? Did I misread? Was my information correct? And since the story was published, have they received more? We don't know what is the travel bill, so why should we know what is the bill for them? They're not telling the people of Barbados anything. They don't tell us anything. And were it not for that front page, people in this country would have doubted that a government would reduce itself to those transactions. But then this is a transactional government. And any man who believes, or put differently, anytime the government believes that it has lost the support of any of its former supporters, open a transaction and reward him. And he doesn't have to be a high priest, nor does he have to be a decent working man or woman. He can be engaged in nefarious activity. Even for him, there's a transaction. Points of order. Points of order. How am I misleading the public? Point of order. But I have no doubt that the silence would indicate that there are those who will not take collective responsibility, because it is quite possible that some who sit in this chamber as parliamentarians do not know the numbers. And quite possibly, even they do not know that this transaction was made. Points of order. Not a word. because some of them do not know. That is how this government is managing its business. And worse, that is how this government is managing the people's money. Points of order. Well, I spoke earlier this morning about this temporary intervention of a football tournament, which was supposed to solve all the young people's problems in this country. I came in here a few months ago, last year to be precise, and saw some members gleefully, "Oh, I want my mini stadium too. I want mine. Try and bring a mini stadium up by me, because I will be boosted and my community is going to look better than your community." And there was a rivalry. And the word, I think, was that there were 11 mini stadia to be built. And being at that time the least of the apostles, I said, "Oh, you're not getting any. And you, ma'am, I think by then you had departed from the Thursday club, so I figured the honorable member for St. Thomas, she's not getting any either." And I looked down the pecking order, and I knew those who were going to get and those who were not going to get. And I said, well, that's life, that's politics. Some are called. Help me, honorable member for Christchurch West, and few are chosen. Many are called and few are chosen. Point of order again, ma'am. I asked the honorable member for Christchurch West. Yeah, but he is a church goer. I don't want you in the house of the Lord. I beg your pardon?
I will be searching you.
No. Not one of those said a word when I was on the previous topic. But they're out of the blocks now and they're gone again. So that when I heard of these mini stadia, 11 of them, I said, well, and the government can write their notes. The Minister of Sport is here. Write your notes, my friend. That some of us have gone to other countries and seen mini stadia. And a mini stadium at least would be a running track. 2, if you have the money, or if you didn't give the money to the 4 men, the 40 men, it looks like. If you didn't give the money to them, perhaps you would have had some to spend on a track. 3 lanes at least. And a sand pit. And a little football field in the center. I went to a facility on Sunday with an artificial surface. I'm not going to say where it is, but it is quite easy to do these things. Artificial turf, surrounded by a 2 or 3 lane track, so that when the talented child goes home on evenings, 3:30, 4 o'clock, he has about 2 hours in the sunlight to run. And you produce your athletes. You don't have to send Shada Williams to Jamaica to bring her home in the hope that you could get photo opportunities with her, photo opportunities that you don't deserve for her hard work. And you know how many good athletes we have in this country that will never come to success internationally? St. Lucia, Grenada. It's not an accident, you know. There's talent in every one of these islands. We used to be the world champions in cricket, an international sport. But opportunity, and we must give opportunities to our young athletes. And so when this government, as part of a developmental plan, a good and progressive developmental plan, told the people of this country and told some of my colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, that they were getting mini stadia, the government ought to have kept its promise and built mini stadia. But I woke up one morning and a friend of mine called me from St. Philip North. He and I watched cricket at St. Catherine. We don't watch cricket at Ellerton. And he told me, point of order, ma'am. He couldn't raise his voice on the previous topic. He could not raise his voice, but he's happy now. He built the mini stadium, by the way. He built the mini stadium. Ma'am, have you seen any of them? Not a track. No improvement to the field. No football field. No basketball court, if there were not one before. But importantly, no track, because you ought to have had a track around it to constitute it properly as a mini stadium. And Bayfield has the space for that track. And the little boy from Bayfield lost the opportunity to go home on evenings and run on a track. And if he wanted a track, he had to catch 2 buses to get to the Usain Bolt complex. And when the long-promised stadium is finished, he would have to go down there. But to avoid that, they could have given the children a track on which to run. But they misled the people of this country about this mini stadia. You're not going to allow me to say foolishness? No, you're not. So I have to come up with a different word. But they misled the people. The 13-year-old boy from Bailey's or St. Catherine into believing that he was going to get a mini stadium. And now the people of Barbados know that what constitutes a mini stadium is an expensive fence. An expensive fence. If we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, where around this bark the mad and hungry dogs making their mock at our accursed lot. You know, whenever I see the fences, Claude McKay comes to me. That poem, If We Must Die, that they have built fences around the people's open recreational area. Bayfield has been open for many years. The best playing fields in this country, the most salubrious playing fields, are open. They are an organic part of the community. There is no atmosphere of exclusion. Blending pasture, they put one around there too? Or are they frightened to go up there? I don't know if they're afraid of the honorable member for St. Michael East, because when he starts to talk, they get scared. He unburdened himself about the University of Vespera Gardens. Man, I enjoyed every minute of it. He was at his eloquent best that day here. But they punished him. They punished him. It was unjust punishment. If we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while around this bark the mad and angry dogs making their mock at our accursed lot. That is what the people of these communities have been reduced to. Rather than give the people a track to run around, they ping them in within an inglorious spot. Not in preparation for athletic expression, but in preparation for next year, fetes. Food and fetes. Fetes and food. Let the people of Barbados understand this government's agenda. That the government was not interested in creating any mini stadia. The government was preparing grounds of entertainment for its friends, family members, and the third F, I will not alarm you, favorites. So even at that level, there was misallocation of government funds. Even at that level, this government could not be candid with the people of Barbados and ask any of them in this government whether they're satisfied that they now have mini stadia. Not one of them has one. Bayfield only looks different because it looks worse for a fence. I'll go to Blenheim and see if there's a fence up there. I'm not going to compromise the honorable member for St. Michael East into having any private conversation with me, and then he gets punished. I am going to pass up there the same way I passed through Lancaster. I am going to pass it by Blenheim if we leave here early enough and see if they have a fence up there too. But the people of Barbados need to know how this government is spending its money and calling it mini stadia. And then we come to this football tournament. The Prime Minister's Cup. The Prime Minister's Cup. Now, after the enthusiasm of the Prime Minister's Cup, you know, it puts a heavy burden on the Barbados Football Association to have men play in an amateur tournament based on community pride, because we have now accustomed them to playing for money, even if it is $75. I don't know what that is going to do for them nor their self-esteem. But we're on the theme of community development. What is it going to do for them? And how does that tournament burden the Barbados Football Association as it tries to manage an amateur tournament? Do they also expect financial reward? Will they give of their best for free? Or has that tournament in effect destroyed an enterprise which is an amateur tournament of the Barbados Football Association, which has been going for years and years? Weymouth Wales, Everton, Beverly Hills, Black Spurs, Notre Dame, Pride of Gall Hill, Paradise, even Silver Sands. Although they got demoted. But people play for pride.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, I was waiting for a point to actually enter on. The honorable member is misleading this chamber. Just for the record, Silver Sands, Abrams United Silver Sands football team, to give them their full name, did not get demoted. In fact, they were actually promoted from First Division to Premier League, so they'll be playing in the Premier League. And what, you can clap for that. And while we're there, Madam Chair, in the allegations that this is destroying the community football and the football teams that exist, the teams playing in the Prime Minister's Cup are drawn from the exact same teams which play in domestic football. Indeed, to qualify for the Prime Minister's Cup, you have to qualify at the level, at the top of your particular division. For Premier is the first all 10, for First Division is the first 5, Second Division, something like that. So actually this enhances and incentivizes those teams to do even better in the domestic football competition, to be able to qualify then to play for money. So I think it actually enhances and adds a brand new level of competition and provides incentive for the actual domestic competition, Madam Chair. So I'm glad he gave me the opportunity to respond to that and clarify that.
The member, Mr.
The sum total of that intervention is to boast that that the honorable member has printed his name on their shirts. That is what the honorable member wanted to do. He will discover that that name will be erased in the not too distant future. And I will just remind him, the honorable member, that if they were promoted and having had a reasonably long life, they would have been demoted prior to this promotion, for which I congratulate them. Points of order again, ma'am. You know, 5 minutes ago I invited all these points of order, and every man and woman remained silent.
You are not here yet, sorry, sir. Continue.
They had found the spirit of the season, or the spirit of embarrassment. But now in football, everybody comes to life. Well, let them come to life. I congratulate the honorable member for Christchurch East for having the temerity to place his name on the shirt of an established football club. It's not something that is done too often. People who play in these divisions normally keep the name of the community as a matter of pride, but to come and put your name on the people's thing, anyhow, that will come off.
Madam Chair, the honourable member is misleading the chamber again, just as a matter of clarification, because we take a particular point in this. Silver Sands was an established football club. They had fallen on very hard times under the last administration with the former member for Christchurch East, and they could get no sponsorship at all. So I, in opposition at the time, went forward to sponsor them, and they insisted on placing my name on their shirts. I did not actually request it. I indeed, Madam Chair, sponsor 3 football teams in my area, 2 cricket teams, a volleyball team. And the only one that carries my name is the one that actually asked to put the name on. And when they did so, ma'am, I could not be so churlish as to deny them what they requested. I wonder why no teams in Christchurch South actually bear RAT, RT, or any other concoction of the same, or indeed whether or not he sponsors any teams. But you know, ma'am, I don't govern myself on him. I just wish to correct the record, Madam Chair, lest people leave with the wrong impression.
Your point is taken. I remember.
Yes. So that the honourable member was dragged kicking and screaming in acceptance of his name being placed on a jersey. And he had the chance to say no, but he reluctantly said, okay, all right, put my name. I all insist, please put my name. And that is the essence of parliamentary debate, that his name is there only by accident. There's a team in my constituency, but everybody knows the name of the team. The captain is Armando Lashley, who was the Barbados football captain. And I'm not going to say what I did for anybody. Yeah, that's not my style, nor content. That I would come in here and boast to the world that I gave money to a team? How vulgar, though. How absolutely vulgar. The honourable member has made himself famous for from a distance, putting money in football teams and cutting the hair of young men as they're about to go back to school. I think I saw that in the paper, that he is a barber in the last week of August and the first week of September. Very poor barber. In the event that he cuts his own hair, he's not a very good barber at all. Point of order again? Oh, I see. Why you don't leave me now? So if the spirit of the season is to mean anything, I think we have engaged them long enough. The hour of 5, the 17th hour of this day approaches, and Your Honor, I suspect that I should not trespass on time any longer. The honorable member for Christchurch East Central has returned to say what he did not feel like saying this morning. He probably quoted, I think, exactly 8 lines from this voluminous document. He now returns to us with a new resolve to correct what he failed to do this morning. And I don't know if he will take 1 hour or 2 or 3. He will do disservice to this document if he speaks now for less than an hour. He will do disservice to this document unless he amends his earlier position that his advice to the people of this country, if they want to meaningfully participate in this economy, is to buy a barrel of rum and keep it in their shade rough. He probably knows what is a shade rough. He will clarify his earlier position that the most important investment that the people of this country are now invited to make is to invest in a barrel of rum for the sake of theirs and the country's future prosperity. Your Honor, there's a lot more that I can say, except that I feel that I've said a lot. And I don't wish to burden you, Your Honor, any further with the truth, because even the truth is of heavy weight when it lands on the shoulders of those who are guilty. So I will no longer burden them with the truth of this country's perilous economy. I will rest on the submissions that I have made, and I will close by saying that there is a distant separation between the objectives stated in this document and government's actual policy decisions, which remain inconsistent with the lofty objectives mentioned in this document. Your Honor, I am obliged to you.